Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you. Hey everyone, Joshua Hanlon here at BrickFair Chantilly, and we've got this fantastic Star Wars collab built by 3 builders here. You want to introduce yourselves, and then we'll take a look at the scene?
Sure, I'm Ethan, or Catalyst Bricks, and this is Mason, M5 Builds, and Daniel Ross Lego. And this is our clone base, the clone fortress for the Delta. And this is basically early Clone Wars, before they switched their paint. You know, these are all using the Geonosis ranks, which I think look pretty cool, and the Trade Federation tan colors before they switched over to the, Separatist blue and gray. So this is obviously the Republic defending a vital point in this planet that they're trying to protect, and that's basically the story for the build.
Okay, very cool. Let's start with your section then and kind of go section by section with each of you.
Yeah, so I started over here on this gunship hangar towards the left. And basically I built this with a snot floor. I have some white details in there, kind of like a box for where the gunship is supposed to land. And then I have a nice technique with the walls, kind of like an Imperial base design with those like strips that go up from the floor to the ceiling. And I threw in some lights around the top just to kind of illuminate it a little bit better. And then there's a couple Easter eggs from the Complete Saga Classic. So there's the door with the bounty hunter, and then obviously there's like a mini kit on top of the gunship and stuff. The gunship is also Mason's design. That's the M5 Builds gunship, so that looks really nice in there. And we just got some crates and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like the subtle little white details in the flooring to break up that gray.
Yeah, I think that worked really well. It would have been pretty bland if it was just a plain dark gray floor, so pretty happy with the contrast with the white. And then the terrain is bright green, because you don't really see that too often, especially in Star Wars builds. And then we did some medium nougat and dark tan for like the kind of trim around the rocks. And then to simulate like the darker sand or whatever, we got some dark orange going right up to the snot like riverbank. And then obviously translate blue for the water, classic. So I think it looks pretty nice.
Oh, fantastic. We'll go to our next builder then, if you want to talk about your section.
Yeah, so I did the middle section here, so pretty much everything from the rocks all the way over to where the wall angles off here. And if you can't already tell, the main part that I did really was the wall right here. And when I was designing this, I wanted to focus on just coming up with a clean design. As Ethan mentioned, we wanted this to represent maybe one of the first battles in the war. So I really didn't want to lean into a lot of greebling or weathering. So I spent a lot of time coming up with the shape. I ended up landing on sort of a trapezoid for the top, and then we have the big pillars coming off of the side right there. And for the middle of it, I didn't want to just do a plain flat gray wall, so I spent a lot of time coming up with this. I'm not sure what you could call it, but you can see the different shapes in the center there and how the different parts coming at an angle on the side. And then, of course, we have the door with the fighter tank, which was designed by Ethan. I had originally planned for the door to be motorized, but I came up with a couple different prototypes. They worked okay, but on the final one, it just didn't work out the way I wanted it to.
Talk a little bit more about how you were able to incorporate that sort of X shape into the wall there. Is that kind of built separately and installed, or how does that all fit together?
Yeah, so that was actually one of the first things I designed. I had, you can see the 45-degree wedge tiles is kind of what inspired that, and I pretty much attached so these are snot right here, and then this is plates, and the snot is attached with Technic pins, and the plates are attached with just plates on the back, and that allows it to be inset because the plates are thinner than the bricks themselves.
And what are these kind of darker gray details? What pieces are those?
So those are actually bucket handles, which if you didn't know, you're able to put them in the anti-studs of a 1x1 brick, and it gives off a really nice texture, especially when you line up a couple of them, as we have here.
And then how did this bridge section come together?
So the bridge was actually something we ended up doing on site. Yeah, we came pretty close as far as timing goes. We designed and built this all in about a month, and most of the building was really done within 2 weeks. So the bridge was built by Mason. Luckily, he was able to build it in like an hour. So that's about it, yeah.
Great work, thank you. We'll go to our third builder then.
All right, so I built this right side. I built the Delta and the tower. The Delta, I looked at a lot of real-life examples, and I live in Oregon, so I looked a lot of at upriver, and just kind of took note of how things form and how the water affects the rocks and land around it. And then for the tower, I used hinge plates to build it. It seemed like the most sturdy way, and I used cheese slopes to help get the angle and the curve. Cheese slopes are super easy to work with, and so that made the tower a lot easier. And the top, I used panels. It's the best way to kind of get that curve and to avoid gaps and just kind of cover it. And that was pretty easy to travel. It's really solid. So 'cause I have to bring this on a plane, so it's really, really important that it can survive that.
Yeah. And how did you kind of make sure that the water tiles and everything would match up well with your terrain there? Was a lot of that trial and error and kind of piecing it together?
Yeah, I moved the land around a lot to try to just get it to be the most accurate as possible. And Daniel sent a picture of his, and we just kind of counted studs, just went back and forth to try to make sure that everything lined up. And of course here we did some work, just some touch-ups.
Yeah. And what do we have behind the wall, kind of in the back of the scene?
In the back, we have a little platform for an AV-7 cannon that I built. It's based off of the vehicle we see in Clone Wars, and it's minifigure scale. I used a minifigure scale calculator online to get the exact measurement of what size it should be. We have a little speeder carrying some missiles that Daniel built, and then just some crates around and some minifigures talking.
Very nice. Great work. So when you guys brought this all to the show, what was the setup process like, since you kind of each had your own sections?
So when we got here, there was a couple parts that we hadn't finished. So we basically set up all the plates and then tried to make all of them like match together as best as we could, and then we finished them. Like this first right base plate right here on Mason section, we basically built here at the show, and then like the pad underneath the AV7 and a bunch of the rock work we built here too. So we basically put all the plates together, kind of got an idea for what we wanted it to look like, and then added on the rest of the foliage, terrain, and stuff like that, and then obviously minifigures. So.
Okay. What is the collaboration process like as you were planning and kind of figuring out which section each of you would do?
So, I mean, we all live in different states, so we have like a Discord call. I drew up like a schematic for what we wanted it to look like, and then we just divided it into sections of like who's going to build what. And then we would just constantly send like whip pictures and do Discord calls to figure out scale and like placement. So like making sure the river would line up throughout all of our plates was really big, because that's not, so you can't like go back and change that at the show. Other things like the rocks you can kind of make like work, but the river was like, we got to get that right. And then just sending pictures, making sure everything looks consistent. You know, if Daniel built most of his section before me and Mason, so we tried to make our stuff look similar to his so it looks cohesive. But we just kind of sent pictures, Discord calls, and just figured it out as we went.
Perfect. I think the whole scene turned out great, so thank you guys for all your work here. I appreciate it.